Hello everybody. So today we are going to finish talking about slope point form that we started the other day. So if you remember, this is our slope point form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And of course, x1 and y1 are both points that, or they're both coordinates of a point that the line goes through. Okay, so all I really want to do today is we are going to just do a couple more examples with slope point form. So that should have been your homework that you've done last week. So today we'll have a little bit more for you to go through. So let's take a look at the next example that I want to do. So we'll say, given the following graph, and obviously I'll draw the graph. So given the following graph, write its equation. In both slope point form and slope intercept form. Okay, so I'll draw the graph out here. So it's gonna look a little something like this. And let's say it goes through points 3, 1 and -1, -2. Okay, so let's say it looks like that. Okay. So if we take a look here, the first thing we want to use is slope point form because the graph doesn't cross the y-axis at an exact point, right? So like that y-intercept there, it looks like we could estimate it. It looks to be about -1.25, but it doesn't cross exactly right on the line. So we don't want to estimate if we're coming up with an equation. Okay. So we'll say a graph doesn't cross the y-axis. At a whole number. So we'll use slope point form. Okay. All right. So first thing we want to do is we want to find our slope, right? That's our m value. We're going to need that regardless of which form we're going to use. So we should remember our formula for slope: y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so we'll use this point down here for our first point. So this will be x1, y1 there, and this will be x2, y2 over there. So if we substitute that in, y2 is going to be 1, y1 is going to be -2, x2 is going to be 3, and x1 is going to be -1. So we're just making those substitutions there. All right, so we get 3/4 for our slope. Okay, so we have our slope now. So the next thing we need to do for using slope point form is to just pick some point. It doesn't matter. We can pick -1, -2, or we can pick 3 and 1. I'll pick 3 and 1 for this question just so they can stay positive. Okay. So slope point form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And just to be clear, this y1 and x1 is not necessarily the same as this x1 and y1. Doesn't matter. They can be different. Okay. So we'll have y minus, so in this case y1, I'm using my 0.31 over here. So my y coordinate is going to be 1. My m value, we just calculated, is going to be 3/4. X and x1 is going to be the x coordinate from the point I'm using, which is 3. Okay, so that's going to be our equation in slope point form, but now we want to get it into slope intercept form. So all we need to do is to expand and simplify to get it into slope intercept form. For slope intercept form, which of course is y equals mx plus b. All you're trying to do here is to get y by itself. Once you get y by itself, you'll get it into slope intercept form. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to expand the 3/4 into there. So we'll get y minus 1. So we'll get 3/4 x minus, so 3/4 times 3 gives us a 9/4, right? And then to both sides, we want to add 1. So we do that, those cancel. And we'll get an answer of y equals 3/4 x. Notice how our slope does not change, which is good. And then, so if we add a 1 to 9/4, that's like adding 4/4, right? So that'll be minus 5/4 if we do that. Okay. So here's our slope point form, and that's our slope intercept form right there. Okay, so let's do one more example, and that will be all for today's lesson. So let's do example. Write an equation for a line that passes through the points R, which is at 1, -1, and is. So first question, parallel to the line y equals 2/3 x minus 5. All right, so we need an equation for a line that passes through the point 1, -1, and is also parallel to the line y equals 2/3 x minus 5. Okay, well, if you remember from section 6.2, any line that's parallel to another line must have the same slope. Okay. So the slope of this line, 2/3 x minus 5, well, we know our slope is going to be 2/3, right? That's our m value there. So we know that our parallel line, or sorry, we know the line that we're trying to make is going to have the same slope. Okay. So let's discuss what we have here. So we have a slope and we have the point r, which is 1, -1. Now I know that that is not a y-intercept. If it was a y-intercept, it would have an x-coordinate of 0, right? It would be right on the y-axis. So we know it's not the y-intercept. Not the y-intercept. So if we have something if we have the slope of a line, and we also have a point that's not the y-intercept, we need to use slope point form, our new form. Okay, so again, that's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so we know it has to go through the point 1, -1. So I know y1 is going to be that coordinate. It must be -1. I know what the slope is going to be because it has to be the same slope because it's parallel. It's going to be 2/3. And I know what x1 is going to be. Oops. I'm writing off center here. It's going to be 1. Right? Because that has to be 1. That has to be -1. All right. So I can simplify this a little bit. So this line is going to be +1, 2/3 x minus 1. So that's the equation of a line that's parallel to the line 2/3 x minus 5, and also goes to the point 1, -1. All right, and let's do the second half. So it still has to go through the point r at 1, -1, but it must also be perpendicular to the line y equals 2/3 x. So same line, but this time it has to be perpendicular. So if you remember, the slope of any perpendicular line must be a negative reciprocal. All right, so our slope here, of course, is 2/3, but the negative reciprocal of 2/3 is going to be negative, and remember the reciprocal means to just flip the fraction. So 2/3 becomes 3/2. Okay. So again, we have slope. And we have a non-y-intercept point. Therefore, again, we're going to use slope point form. Okay, so again, y minus y1 equals x, or sorry, not x, m times x minus x1. So our y1 again is going to be point r that it must go through, which was 1, -1. So -1 is the y coordinate on that one. The new slope we just found out here is going to be the negative reciprocal. So this one's going to be -3/2. And then our x coordinate is going to be the x coordinate of that point r, which was +1. So put it there. And now I can clean this up a little bit. So minus -1 is the same as adding 1. There. So that would be the equation of a line that is both going through point 1, -1, which is point r, and also perpendicular to the line y equals 2/3 x minus 5. Okay, so that's all for that section. So we can now finish up the homework assignment from that part. So it's still going to be on page 372. But now we can do numbers 9, 11, 12, and you can pick either 17 or 18 to do. All right, so that's all for today. See you guys next week. Stay safe.